You ready? Are you up?
I think so, yes, we're recording.
Good morning or good afternoon, whatever it might be. This is Sharon Stroll from the Center for Ethics at University of Idaho, and Aubrey Shaw, soon to be, I believe, a PhD from the University of Idaho, focusing on physical disabilities and the importance of play. Aubrey will be doing this presentation, and so I will let her take it over. Aubrey.
Thank you, Dr. Stoll, for the great introduction. Let's see here. The purpose of this presentation is threefold. First, we're going to understand the importance of opportunities for students with physical disabilities. Secondly, we're going to examine the Martin Buber's I, thou, and I, it phenomenon. And third, we're going to provide skills and tools and perspective taking, which helps an individual gain the I, thou, instead of the I, it. Setting the problem. So there has been a very big issue throughout history, and that is students with physical disabilities are being excluded from physical education, recreation, and sport. And throughout the literature, you can see this. So physical education teachers, they say that one of the biggest reasons why they're not including is because they're not prepared. And three different aspects go into those not prepared situations. The first aspect is attitudes. The second aspect is their perceived competency. Am I really competent to teach this population? And then the third one is education. Are they educationally prepared to teach? And throughout these resources down below, they talk about the different aspects of attitudes, perceived competency, and education. Literature in the field, there are many theories, but the theory that we're going to focus on is Martin Buber's I, thou, and the I, it. So he discusses how we either see people in two lights. One of the lights is the I, it. And the I, it says that we view people, others, as objects. And this would be seeing a student with a physical disability, let's say that they're in a wheelchair, and you see the wheelchair instead of the person. That is an example of the I, it. The other example is the I, thou. And the I, thou, he says, is that we view people as ourselves. We can see them as a sacred being. Secondly, we have attitudes, values, and beliefs. And Alport, Antonka, and Panda, and Bartel, and Lumpkin, Stoll, and Beller, they discuss attitudes, values, and beliefs within their work. Alport's work, he discusses prejudices. Antonka, Panda, and Bartel, they discuss the difference between physical education teachers and special education teachers, and how physical education teachers would rather teach students with mental impairments, and special education teachers would rather teach students with physical impairments. And so there's this mind and body thing going on with physical education teachers and special education teachers. Furthermore, Lumpkin, Stoll, and Beller, they discuss how moral values and our values are affected by our beliefs and by our attitudes. Furthermore, the effects of judgments is really important because laws only go so far. Our attitudes, values, and beliefs play a huge role in our judgments. And if we know our attitudes, values, and beliefs and match them up with our judgments, then we have a better way of perspective taking. And like I said, laws only go so far. Furthermore, perspective taking is the focal point and is really important because if someone perspective takes, then we will be able to, let's say I'm a physical education teacher and I am perspective taking, I will know how the student will react and feel when they are excluded. And so when they are excluded, I feel that, and I will be able to step in and say, wait a minute, we shouldn't exclude. And this affects our judgments, our attitudes, our values, and our beliefs. Now we're going to discuss skills and tools that we have for perspective taking. Interventions in physical education have been done looking at this idea of exclusion. And Q and Ha, they discuss, so Q and Ha, Blanc, and Oborskia, and Clemenia, and Block, they all discuss different interventions that they have done. And those interventions have been with teachers, with physical education teachers, with adaptive physical education specialists, and peer tutors. And they have all found that interventions work. However, it's not looking at, those interventions are not looking specifically at the physical education teacher. They're saying, well, peer tutors with this population work. APEs, adaptive physical education specialists, they work as well. So we need to go further and look at, what about physical education, doing an intervention for a physical education teacher. Okay. And this is where the importance of an educational intervention comes in. The Center for Ethics has been doing research in moral reasoning and sport for the past 30 years. And they have been building moral reasoning educational interventions. So Beller, Bryant, Culp, Weibo, Rudd, and Van Mullen, they have all built these different educational interventions, and they have all seen an increase in moral reasoning with their population. Additionally, the importance of educational interventions also can be said that reading, writing, and reflection are really important. So, authors in neuroscience and moral reasoning, they discuss the importance of reading, writing, and reflection, because reading, writing, and reflection makes us go into this cognitive dissonance, makes us go into this uncomfortable situation, and we need that for the moral brain to grow. And reading, writing, and reflection really helps us when we perspective take. Introducing the lessons. Now, what's the importance of perspective taking? Like I said before, the importance of perspective taking for a physical education teacher is that when you are a physical education teacher and you see some student who has a physical disability being excluded, then you can step in and say, wait a minute, we are going to include this person because you know how they feel and they're going to react to the exclusion. Okay. So we, the authors, Dr. Stroll and I, have created a 6-lesson educational intervention for physical education teachers. And these different lessons have different topics to them that plague people with disabilities or physical disabilities. So we have a lesson on language, we have a lesson on inspirational porn, we have a lesson on laws, we have a lesson on beauty as well. Okay, and so the following slides that we have are slides from one perspective taking lesson. and that is inspirational porn. So our lesson 3 we're going to look at. And first off, we start with a quote from Michael Oliver. If you're not familiar with Michael Oliver, he is a disability studies professor in England. And his work is imperative to perspective taking because he takes a whole different, unique perspective away from the United States. And so we used him as an underpinning to create these lessons. And this lesson is about inspirational porn. And so he discusses how media likes to portray people with physical disabilities as inspirational because they're rock climbing or they're trekking the jungle. And maybe perhaps we should challenge that view instead of embrace it. Next, we have our activity. And we had a picture. So a picture will appear. And we asked the participants, what do you see first? What is your initial reaction? Where does your eye go? So this is the picture. And this picture is of Stella Young. And she is a disability advocate and a comedian. Sadly, she passed away, and she was Australian. So we're using different perspectives from around the world, not just in the United States. So our first question is what did you notice? In reality, in a study of 44 participants, most people in the study noticed the wheelchair first, the shoes, and then the face. Okay? And this reinforces Martin Buber's I, it, and I, thou. Okay? So saying the wheelchair first is considered an I, it. The shoes first is considered an I, it. And then the face, if we focus on the face first, that means that we see the person and not the person as an object. Okay? And that is what we really should be seeing first, is the face. Next, so why do we see the shoes or the wheelchair or the face? Okay, and it goes into Plato's allegory of the cave. So perhaps maybe we're just in our own cave, which we drag our existence with us, so that actually does make sense. So Plato's allegory of the cave is, we gave them this scenario, and this is what Plato's cave is when we're in this cave, we all live together, and we only see light from a fire, and we only see shadows. And then one of us goes out into the world and we see green grass and green trees and blue water. And then they come back and they tell us all about it. And would we believe them? If we are dragging our existence with us, most of us would probably not believe them because we're still in the cave. Now, what happens when we are in this cave and we are working with people with physical disabilities? Assumptions happen, okay? And we have 3 different assumptions, and the first assumption that we have is an assumption of pain. Okay? If we see a person with a physical disability and we do not have a physical disability, then we can have an assumption of pain because we are in our own cave. Okay? And this assumption can lead to thinking that all people with physical disabilities live with pain, but that is not true. Only a certain amount of people live with that pain or could have pain. The next assumption that we have is an assumption of incompetency. And this happens a lot. You have a physical impairment, and then people think that you are incompetent because of that physical impairment. But that is not actually true. They can do those tasks, and they might do them differently, but they can still do them. And that's the point. Right here we say para ability. Why not use para ability instead of disability? And then the next assumption that we have is assumption of lack of intelligence. Okay. We assume that there is a lack of intelligence, okay, that people with physical impairments have cognitive impairments as well. There's a lot of pairing going on. However, many people that have physical impairments do not actually have cognitive impairments. And so this assumption can lead us down these roads that we don't want to go. And when we have these assumptions, then we don't give them the opportunity to play and to participate in sport, recreation, and physical education. In conclusion, what happens when so in conclusion, we discussed the issue of people with physical disabilities being excluded from physical education, recreation, and sport. We discussed the literature that supports this idea, and how to get out of this idea with attitudes, values, and beliefs. And then we discussed skills and tools that we can further use. Okay? What happens when we have assumptions? People with physical disabilities don't get to play. What happens when we see people with physical disabilities as objects? They don't get to play. Okay? When they don't get to play, they don't get to be involved, and that opportunity for them to be involved is so critical. Okay? We need to remember that people with physical disabilities are people too, and they not only want to play, but they need to play for their social, emotional, and physical well-being. And thank you, everyone.
Aubrey, one last thing before we go. You just finished your collection of data and you're ready to defend. And you did their intervention with 2 classes in which actually 44 people went through the program. And in general, what did you find about your 6 lessons in intervention to improve physical perspective?
We found that through the reading, writing, and reflection process, these individuals were engaged. Those who were engaged really enjoyed the intervention, and they learned and they grew because the cognitive dissonance that happened was so great that they now have a different perspective of disability and how to treat people with physical disabilities, and really they're going to try and engage them in physical education, recreation, and sport.
We also, in this population, they are physical educators, the 44 people who did the intervention program, and they are in a program and a curriculum at a state college, preparation for either physical education teachers or people in the field. In general, we found that they, as you said, were very engaged in it, and they found the importance of this. And in general, too, most of them have never thought about individuals with physical disability in this light. They had studied the laws, they had been taught how they were to be inclusive, but they did not have the perspective of how important that was. Is that not correct?
That is very correct. Yes.
So what we have learned from that, as well as this short lesson that you had today, was that perspective taking needs to be a part of any type of intervention program in which people who work in the field of sport or physical education should be involved in that process.
Correct.
And that's the end of our process here because we are out of time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It's, stop here. And, no, wait, hold on. Cancel.